Hello, everyone. This is to specially welcome you to another lecture series in Demography, Crime, and Labor Force course. All right, this is the third of our lecture series, and the title of today's topic is Demography in Nigeria. Without much ado, let us look at what we have for ourselves today. Well, let's talk about demography in Nigeria. All right, demography is the study of both quantitative and qualitative aspects of human population. We have already said these are the very introductory part of the class, and we are interested in every aspect of that is human population, that can help us to develop the well-being of people living within a particular society and all. And before we be able to do that, we need specific information regarding the quantitative and qualitative aspect of the people living within the area. All right. So when we talk about quantitative aspects, what do we mean? Of course, as we said in the earlier class, we mean density, that is population density, the distribution of the population over the space of land that we have available for the society, the growth, of course, in terms of the increase of the number of people staying, and the movement of people. Of course, people cannot stay in one place, so they will have to move from one particular place to the other. Then the size, of course, is of paramount interest, and it's part of the quantitative aspect and of the structure of the population in different ways and all. But when we talk about the qualitative aspect, what do we mean? Well, those are sociological factors, and it means the quantity, I mean, the quality of education, for example. What is the literacy rate? What is the literacy rate and the rest of it? Then the diet and nutrition. How well fed are we? Are we properly fed? Do we have a balanced diet and all that? Do we have a nutrition, quality nutrition? Or we have a lot of our population suffering from malnutrition and all that. We are very interested in that, and that also constitute part of the qualitative aspect. Then the race, of course, we don't have the issues of race in Nigeria, but in other societies, race is also part of the sociological factors and the social class. Hmm. You probably talk about Nigeria being referred to as the poverty capital of the world. That is not a good aspect of our population or demography as far as the social class is concerned. You know, when we have more people that are poor than those that are rich, it shows that we have a problem that needs to be addressed. Then, crime. What is the crime rate? Do we have lots of crime problems and all that? The more we have crime problems, of course, the more we are going to find it difficult to move forward as a society. Then the wealth, yeah, which of course is the opposite of Nigeria being referred to as the poverty capital. We need more people to have more wealth, so that we need the wealth to also go around. In Nigeria, you probably see lots of people, or let me say just a few people that are very, very wealthy. Well, and we have lots of people that are still begging to have a meal a day. So that is not a pleasant distribution as far as wealth is concerned regarding the quality of our uh, sociological factors and qualitative aspects of our population. Okay, now the demography of Nigeria definitely offers a very clear analysis of the prevalent living condition in the country. Like we talked about the poverty level, we talked about the social class, and the rest of all those characteristics. So it gives us a picture of the living condition of people, and that is why it is very important for us to know or to be very aware, to be knowledgeable about this demography, so that if we find ourselves in position of power or we are part of the policymakers, since our knowledge of all these things are there, we can use it to better the lot of the people. It shows how people are distributed, of course, in the country. For example, urban versus rural areas. And we know, as far as that is concerned, that most people want to leave the urban area and move to the rural area, which is not good, because the more we have that, the more we are going to be having pressure and burden in urban areas. And of course, it comes with a lot of problems. And of course, do we have deserts, native foreigners, and ethnic groups in terms of the distribution of all these? We're going to be talking about some of them as we proceed. So, population demographic now. Nigeria has a high population growth, which we all know. We continue to have babies and all that. So, as we continue to have babies, and relatively, people don't really die in the same ratio as we have birth. So which means that we are going to be having a total population growth and a continual one at that. So that's the population growth. And what can also be referred to as an increasing population. Like I said, we have more babies being born than those that leave the world. And Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa. That has already been the case for a long time, and also the most populous among the black nations of the world. So Nigeria is where we have the highest level of concentration of black people globally. I'm talking about globally, Nigeria is among the top 10 countries with the largest population that is in the world. In fact, it is the eighth most populous country in the world with approximately, well, this approximation is actually something that is old. We should be more than 200 million by now. So let's not be too bothered about the figure that was showed on the screen. Well, despite declining fertility, that is, Nigeria has been observing declining fertility, Nigeria's population is still expected to grow to the level of 239 million by the year 2025, which is just next year. So probably if we are able to have our population census, we'll see whether this projected figure is actually true. Then by 2050, it is projected that we are going to be about 440 million. So we see about that. And by then, will now be from the eighth, will have moved to the fourth most populous country in the world. Wow. Then most of these growth will be people that is within the people working, I mean within the working ages, that is people between 15 and 64, those that can still work, or the people that constitute what we refer to as the labor force. All right. Thus, the dependency ratio or the number of children and elderly, that is talking about those under 15 and those over 65, those are dependent, divided by the number of working age adults, that is between those that are able to work between 15 and 64, will fall over this very period from 88 dependents per 100, that is 88 dependents over 100 people working as at 2010, to only 69 dependents per 100 by 2050. What this means is that we are going to have more people that will be working than those that will be dependent by then. So, well, we may say this is a positive side of our population growth, if we have more people working or able to work, but it comes with the fact that if we do not have the resources to be able to establish them and they are effectively working, then they are also going to constitute the number of people that will be dependent, even though they are within the age, like we have now that the population, the unemployment rate is very high. And in spite of the fact that we have very huge number of people that are able to work, they are unable to work because of the fact that the jobs are not just there, and they also constitute dependence, and that is not good for our economy. All right, proceeding. These trends are of particular importance because Nigeria is expected to make up 3% of the total world population and 14% of Africa's population by 2050. That's a great percentage. Thus, Nigeria will be poised to be a major player in the global system and particularly important in the African region, provided we are able to utilize our population positively. Talking about utilizing our population positively, the human capital has to be developed. Of course, it's a fact that Nigeria's oil and gas resources represent a potential development boost, and Nigeria contains well, it could be more than this, 37 billion barrels of proven oil reserve and 5 trillion cubic meters of natural gas reserve. It is already ranked among the top 13 oil producers in the world. But despite all this, it has not really translated to tremendous resource advantage to Nigeria, and Nigeria also continues to lag behind as far as many developmental indicators are concerned. So it's a major concern that we have all these resources there that has the ability to make us one of the developed countries of the world. And we have the human capital, quality one at that, that can also make us one of the developed countries in the world. But we are not harnessing our resources in order to be able to deliver that. Why? Primarily, Nigeria has not properly invested in its current and future labor force. Of course, I just talked about the fact that we have high level of unemployment. People that are able to have the skill and the knowledge are just wasting away. Nor has it developed its oil and gas industries to produce long-term growth in both jobs and GDP, nor has it also diversify its economy. We are all dependent on the oil and gas. Almost everybody now, well, at least those that have the wherewithal to be able to access that, are all focused on oil and gas. We are no longer utilizing our good arable lands in terms of agriculture for us to be able to produce en masse and also export goods, agricultural goods, and some other resources that we have that can be harnessed and for us to produce goods that can be exported. So we are not actually taking advantage of our export potentials. Talking about population density, that is the total number of people living within a particular space. Ah, wow. Population density, that is, excuse me, people per square kilometer in Nigeria as reported, or I mean, was reported at 215 square kilometer in 2018 by the World Bank, and population density in mid-year, population divided by land area in square kilometer. That is what makes population density. That is, it is the mid-year population divided by land area in square kilometer. Okay, now let us ask ourselves the question: why the Nigerian population is increasing rapidly? Why do we continue to have rapid population increase in the country? So we're going to be looking at a few factors that causes that, and definitely then be able to think about what to do about these factors. How can we now regulate the increase in population, at least for us to have those that we can cater for, or to minimize our increase in order for us to be able to cater for those that we have on ground. All right. Now, the very first one, which is the most important, is the fact that our birth rate continues to increase. And that has always contributed to the growth of the population. People continue to have babies and all that. And sometimes, unfortunately, the babies they might not be able to cater for. But that is not for us to discuss now. That is one factor that makes our population to continue to increase birth rate. All right, let's look at another factor. Another factor is according to the population census of 2006, the growth rate was 3.02, and this shows that Nigerian population will double by 2022 if we do not do something about the birth rate. Okay. Another factor is that our religion, the religion in Nigeria, or let me say the religions, most of them probably encourages us to continue to have babies. They even have a lot of superstitions and customs that goes against trying to control the influx of babies. For example, well, I'm not going to mention any particular religion or any denomination, but we have some that probably say that it is not too good for us to use contraceptive, that there's this superstitious belief that you are trying to stop God from doing his work by using contraceptive. So contraceptive isn't something that you should be using. Rather, you should just expect that if God blesses you with children, you take them without complaint and without you doing anything to stop them. All right, so those are some of the religious perspectives that may also contribute to the rapidly increasing population in the country. Early marriage is another factor. Early marriage tends to lead to high birth rate as well. When young girls get married, they have a very long period, reproductive years, a long period of reproductive years. That means that they can continue to have babies, and you probably will have heard some ladies or some women having as many as 11 children. They couldn't have had that if they started having babies around 28, 29. That must have been a result of having baby or starting childbearing at probably 15, 16. So early marriage is a factor. And of course, many cultures in Nigeria highly value male child than females. Of course, we know this. And in pursuit of male child, some families do have as many children as possible because they still want the male child. And that is one of the factors that makes us to have increasing population. In the pursuit of male child, you will see that a particular family or a particular woman will have given birth to like 7 children. If they are all girls, she might even still be considering having the number 8, as long as she's still able to and she wants the male child, or the father wants the male child. We have we have lots of cultural beliefs that surrounds the preference for male children. All right, literacy rate is also another factor. People are not well educated as to the reason that they should have the number of children that they can cater for, and also what to do in order to stop more children from coming if they do not have the resources to cater for such children. So that is also a factor. Then marriage, of course, it's relatively universal in Nigeria. Every culture, every society believes so much in marriage. And also, there's an advancement to this. If a partner, that is a married couple, if one partner of the married couple departs by death, and that makes the the other partner to be a widow, or if by virtue of separation, divorce, and all that, they are no longer together, and the partners are still young, they'll be encouraged to have to remarry, and in the process of remarrying, that will mean that they will have more children with whoever they get to remarry to. You know, if a lady of about, let's say, that marries at the age of 20, now has separate from the husband, or the husband dies, and by then she has had three children, for example. If she remarries, she will still want to have more children for the new husband, and we are looking at that very woman having as many as six children as time goes on. So that is also a major factor. Another critical factor is the inefficient national population policy. Of course, the population policy in Nigeria has always been clouded with a lot of problems. We know that when the counting, census, and the rest of all those things, for example, are done, it is never done accurately, and we don't even have an idea of the total number of people that are in Nigeria. We probably remember that just last year, it was an attempt to do population census that never worked out. So we have problems as far as the population data is concerned, and that affects the population policy of the government. Another factor, through though not very significant, is the increase in material well-being of some families. You know, when a particular family hits some form of jackpot, or maybe the father becomes upwardly mobile economically or socioeconomically, then they start considering having babies to celebrate. In fact, we've heard stories whereby some people win contracts, contract award. And in order to celebrate the contract award, they will now want a baby, probably a baby they can call Kolawole, that is the child that have brought wealth into the family, and a couple of things like that. That is also another factor that explains why we have increasing or rapidly increasing population in the Nigerian society. All right, so now let's look at the Nigerian demographic problems and implications, the problems with our demography and the implications of this. I just spoke about the inadequate planning of Nigerian population policy, and of course, it stems from the census taking. Of course, census taking generally is a very sensitive issue, and of course, unfortunately, it has remained intractable in Nigeria. When we do census, it makes it possible for us to be able to appraise the past, accurately describe the present, and estimate and plan for the future. That is the purpose of census, so that we can actually know what problems we have right now, the number of people, the resources available, and a couple of other things that can make the quality of life better. Then we can also plan for the future, so that if we know that this is the increase, the rate of increase right now, we can look into the future and prepare as to those that will be coming in the future. How do we cater for them? However, unfortunate mixture of political and economic issues with population count has meant that no one can tell the number of Nigerians with any degree of accuracy. We know that for sure. So all what we have been having since are estimates and projections. We do not know the number of people that stays in the country. All right, the next one is the environment. And of course, population distribution depends on the environment, and the environment also has a great deal to do with population density. You can probably just remember or reflect on the way that a lot of people have been going to Lagos, because of the environment of Lagos. It is open to the land, sea, and other means of transportation, and because of that, it is a very good environment for business. And by so doing, or by implication, it is also a place that attracts a lot of people. So almost everybody wants to stay in Lagos, and we all know what the population density in Lagos is all about. So environment, the environmental factors, and when we have things like that, then Lagos have become very, very overpopulated, to the extent that it has even trickled to Ogun State and all that. So it is actually very overpopulated, while we have a lot of other places that are sparsely populated or unsettled. So land degradation and desertification is another implication of demographic problem. The more people continue to probably do a lot of activities, extract from the resources of land, the more they degrade the land. And eventually, if all the resources of the land are taken, then we may be facing a problem of desertification. Desertification is a type of land degradation in which a relatively dry land region becomes increasingly arid, typically losing its bodies of water as well as vegetation and wildlife. So it will now be a huge land space that cannot serve any purpose. And of course, the more we continue to have that in our country, the more the country will be very large in size, but yet not being able to get enough resources from all this land space. Desertification again, still on desertification, is a significant global ecological and environmental problem of overpopulation. So wherever we have overpopulation, we are certain to have desertification as well. And it causes many problems, few of which are high risk of crop failure. That means that we will not be able to grow crops on such land. Low economic returns on crops. That is, even if we do and put a lot of fertilizer and the rest, we will still not be able to get a lot of returns. And a buildup of salt in the soil, which of course will be killing the mineral resources of the soil, and accidental burning of semi-arid vegetation, of course, is also a cause of that. So if we burn the vegetation, definitely we are also killing the resources in the soil and all. Okay, climate change is another factor as well that could also emanate from demographic problems. As humans continue to remove vegetation from land space, probably to build houses or to do whatever, there's less remaining vegetation to add moisture to the soil, and this will evaporate into the air and form clouds that leads to rainfall. With significant reduced rainfall, drought occurs and leads to a hotter and drier climate and later causes desertification in the surrounding landscape. We all know about the climate change we'll be experiencing. And of course, it may be the factor that is making a lot of people feel the heat. When I say the heat, I mean the fact that we have a very low produce from the farms, and now the cost of all these food items are very high right now because even the rain for this year, if you do think about it, has not really been falling the way we expect it to do so. And that is part of the climate change. So the climate is changing now, confusing the farmers and not allowing the farmers to be able to plan and to be able to cultivate appropriately. And that will affect yields eventually and also affect the cost of foods. So it's a problem. Deforestation is another problem. Deforestation is the clearing of large parts of forests for human needs. Like I said earlier, maybe in terms of building or in terms of doing some other activities. Now, forests are being cut down to be used as fuel, for example, for agriculture, timber harvesting due to increasing human population, war, and animal husbandry in dry lands. So once the trees and the vegetations are gone, there is nothing left to hold the soil in place. So the soil could now become vulnerable to wind. So the wind will just continue to blow the surface of the soil and we experience deforestation. The economy also is affected. The demographic problems also affect the economy. Now, the possible impact of the population crash in Nigeria on the economy is seen through rapid urbanization. What we mean by that is the rapid movement of people from from rural to urban area, and addressing the needs of these increasing number of urban residents, including their access to food. Of course, they want to eat, housing, giving them places to stay, education, employment will be a major challenge for Nigerian government in the coming decades. We already know that it is a major challenge right now in some specific cities like Lagos. You know that some people even stay on water now just because they can't get a space, a land space to build. And you all know the cost of housing or renting house apartments now right now in Lagos. It is skyrocketing by the day and all that, and a lot of people cannot afford it. Can imagine the recent news that we heard that some people are even staying under the bridge and even paying rent. We even have under the bridge landlord right now. Those are some of the implications of demographic problems we are having and lots more. All right, that ends the lecture for today. I know that some of you may have questions regarding what we have treated. Please drop your questions in the comment section of this channel, and I'm going to attend to those questions. Well, we have been looking at demography in Nigeria, generally looking at what we need to do to improve the demographic issues, identifying the problems and what we need to do to correct those problems. Uh, we are still going to be talking about demography, crime, and the labor force. So we will still be able to learn a lot. And eventually, the target, like I said, is to make us to be good policy makers by the time we end up there as students right now. But by the time we grow to the level where we now have the an ability to be able to make a change, to be able to make the adequate change. All right. On that note, I say goodbye to you all and expect you in the next class. Thank you all for watching and listening, and bye for now.